biggest issues on commuter rail is we don't have enough employees.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So,
And the other concern that people have is, and I said this publicly at the transportation hearing in Boston, MBTA saying they're going to cut the services at night, they're going to cut this, they're going to cut that, and quite frankly, I stood up and said, do it, because we don't have it. To try to signify that we don't have all these services. You want to cut, if you don't leave at 7:30, you're not leaving until like 11 in the morning. So you want to cut those 3 hours, we don't get it anyway. If you don't leave out of Boston at 4:40 or 4:50, you can't leave until like 6 something. So we get it. We're the people that are suffering. A lot of people closer to Boston, quite frankly, I think they have trolleys and trains and the T and the bus and the subway and the commuter. Something's got to give. I think there really needs to be equity. With equity comes uncertainty, because people across the state are just not used to change. They're not used to losing something. Everybody wants more. I have concerns about the South Coast Rail. We hear through the stimulus package we could possibly get money for the South Coast Rail, which is the New Bedford line. That's great. Who's going to take on the operating expenses once the thing's built? But then again, the Fitchburg line, we've gotten $75 million from the state, $75 million from the feds, and then another $30 million that's going to come in from the stimulus package. So we're still on track to get our stuff done. And I think that they need to look at the shelf already.
when you say you want to cut weekend service, tell them go ahead and cut it. Does that include all service? Or, this a Fitchburg train on a weekend carries quite a few people.
Well, no. What the point we're making is they're talking about daily service. They're saying, well, we're going to cut bus service. Well, we're going to cut this. And the legislators our way are saying, we don't have it anyway. You keep threatening to cut, but we don't have it. So how can you cut what we don't have? And I don't think it's going to get to that. I don't think it's going to get to the point that...
It can't go that far because why we have midday service, there's no place to put these trains.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they run.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper to keep them running than to build a rail yard.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And the double tracking is going to help us as soon as that gets done from South Ashland to Waltham. We know this. But again, I think the biggest problem we're seeing with the transportation piece is the culture shock. You talk taxes or tolls. Well, it's not a Republican or Democrat thing. It's a geographical thing. The people closer to the border don't want tolls. The people taxes. People in Boston don't want tolls. It depends on where you're coming from and where you work, and then that's exactly what we're seeing. It's almost gotten to the point that if you tell me where you're from, I can tell you which one you're going to ask for, because it's been such a process, and it's been such a system that we've seen through the hearings that we've had. There are some tough issues that are going to be worked out. The unions are up there all the time. No one is saying just throw them to the side. It can't happen. They do all the work. So.
What is they tried to merge all the parts of the highway system before, and it's always been resistance in the House.
It's always been resistance now.
And you think we'll pass them this time around?
I think something's going to have to pass in the House. It's indicative that they're going to have some problems in the House because today when we voted to release it from committee, the House reserved their rights, which means that they didn't say yes or no to it. They were just reserving their rights to make a decision later, while the Senate all approved the release of it from the committee. So whether they have their own package, and we don't know about it yet, but the bill that we're working on is 286 pages long. This thing is huge, and it deals with everything. It deals top to bottom. The only thing that's not in it is revenue. We're looking at reforms. We don't believe any type of revenue.
But my understanding is, at least the bill, as Senator Murray originally filed it, was going to say she estimated to say $6.5 billion over 20 years, which is, I don't know, $325 million a year. What, can you give us an idea, kind of high level, how are the reforms that she's talking about actually going to save that money? What's the correlation between
a lot of it is,
merging this and
is
saving that?
Jobs. A lot of it is if we're not going to have as many people on payroll. A lot of it is to get some of the debt paid down with the money that we're not going to have to pay out in each different agency. There are other parts of it that if we have, you know, transportation taking care of the Tobin Bridge, you know, because Massport takes care of the Tobin Bridge right now, that will change hands. And really it's to streamline it. And so we can start to pay down some of that debt, which is going to then pay down that interest that we're supposed to be paying. But again, the question remains, we have a $16 to $19 billion deficit over 20 years to fix our roads and bridges. That's where your revenue comes in. It's not immediate, but that's where it starts to come in to conversation. But again, we're not going to have that conversation until this revenue piece is done.
Well, because the governor's plan for the 19 cents or a gas tax, I think when he announced it, he said he was going to raise like $490 million or $500 million, something like that a year. In the end, are we going to end up with a $325 million that's saved and a 5 or 6 cent gas tax to make up the difference between what the governor wants, or do you think there are other ways to come up with that
You
number?
could, but at this point, it's all hypothetical. The governor is saying he's not going to accept anything but 19. You know, in his news articles, he's saying that he wants his plan to go forward. He wants to make sure his plan is going to work. The 19 cents is going to be divided into all the areas that we've seen in the little pie charts. But then he's also asked for the sugar tax and the alcohol tax and, you know, whatever else we're coming up with. So it's going to be difficult. I mean, I don't think you're going to see a 19-cent gas tax. In fact, New Hampshire's just done 5, 5, and 5. Some people are amenable to that, to say, hey, listen, if it's going to make Route 2 a little better, or if it's going to make 190, I mean, don't forget, we have 12, 13, 117, 290, 190, Route 2, we have all of that coming into our area. So for us, roads and bridges is crucial as much as the MBTA is, because we don't use the Pike. You know, we don't use you gotta go 35 minutes south to go east. I mean, what's the point of that? And the question is the western tolls, like what are they gonna do in the west? So those are the big questions, but that's gonna come for the Senate, that's gonna come after regional reforms. And I think you're gonna see a big fight about that on Wednesday.
Would there be a folding in of the pension programs for all of the state agencies so that we're all under one plan?
That's another, under the transportation bill or under the new pension reform plan that the governor has?
Under the pension reform plan.
The governor's trying to put everybody on the same track. And eliminate some of the loopholes. Like as it stands right now, I guess if I go one day into the next year, I get a pension for the year or something instead of just the days. Legislators are always going to go into that next year because you don't get sworn until the first Wednesday. So we're always going to have 2 or 3 or 6 days or whatever days it is. And some other agencies have that. They're looking to do that, and I haven't seen the pension reform plan yet. So I don't know what exactly his plans are. We've been doing this for so long that his plan came out yesterday for pensions. I haven't read it yet.
And how do I find out where the 210 pages are, besides calling your office and telling them tax?
For the bill,
Yeah.
usually if you go on mass.gov/LEGIS, it brings you to the legislative. They're bringing them all up online. It's taken a while because they're all now being numbered. So a majority of them are up there, and if not, my staff can get them.
It's mass.
gov/LEGIS, that's the legislative. And it should say text. It should say House Bills text, Senate Bills text, or House Bill summary and Senate Bill summary. And there should be histories, but the histories should just be telling you they got sent to committee at this point, because they haven't gone anywhere yet.